That's okay. Here we go. Record the thing. Press the intro button. In fact, no, see my face. Hello, how's it going? Now I press the intro button. I can hear mouse clicking. Stop your mouse clicking. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some science news from around the internet today, having a grumble when required, and talking about the ways we're keeping ourselves entertained at home. Remain indoors. Hi, I'm your host, Richard Spanners Ready, and I'm joined by Matt Two Rumpets. Matt, did you notice how much more chill I am these days if I make a slight stumble in the intro? Like in the olden days, I'd have been like, no, that will not do. Everyone must stop and wait while I do the intro again.
Yeah, your standards have fallen, basically. Yes, I've noticed.
No, I've become more relaxed and more able to adapt to things going wrong. That we could do the positive spin if you wanted.
Yeah, but what would the fun in that be?
Well, nearly as fun as my weekend. Let's start with you. Did you have a fun weekend, Matt?
It was just sort of a standard weekend, I guess.
Really? Oh.
I mean, I wouldn't. You know what was fun? The weather turned really nice here, so we got out.
Hang on, didn't you have snow?
Really
didn't you have snow like a week ago?
Yeah, like a week ago. Yeah, but we had like a little stretch of weather like one would expect for this time of year. So yeah, I guess Sunday morning it was just, perfect weather, like 18, clear, low humidity. So that turned out to be a really good day. But it's stressful here because our child has a really big test coming up for her AP class, AP World History.
Okay, what's AP? Advanced Politics.
Advanced Placement.
Oh.
So if she does well enough on the exit exam, she can potentially test out of college classes.
Nice.
When she goes to college. And this is her first one. And instead of happening in the normal fashion, it's all going to happen online. And there have already been reports of technical difficulties. So she's hit that. I'm now officially anxious and nervous about this thing looming up at me.
Yeah.
So I got to...
As if there isn't enough unknowns about reaching that stage of life and education. Now you have the unknowns of the technology as well. All that extra stress, but she'll get through it.
Oh, no, she's incredibly well prepared. She's worked very, very diligently to be ready for this test. But as with any unknown, until you've done it, your mind just invents disaster scenarios for you, hopefully.
It certainly does. All part of living and learning. Of course, you've got a 15-year-old. I now have a 10-year-old in my house, and Treeface's 10th birthday. It went off without a hitch, Matt. His friends made him his virtual Minecraft world. It had roller coasters, it had a mining competition, it had a boat race, but I didn't know that was a thing, and it was not disrupted by bees in the end.
That's good. I'm glad you were able to get on top of the bees. My daughter did offer to help if you were challenged too much by that.
So I asked a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old to do it for me, and they did. And that's how I solved the problem. Apparently, bees, big issue in Minecraft. They go around ruining everything. And people will be pleased to know that we did have pizza as well. A surprising amount of caring emails in response to our story where we were stressed about paying for pizza. The boy did have pizza in the end. I want to thank everybody for those emails. It was quite touching, the concern. I just want to make sure that I haven't overplayed our situation. Obviously, we were very upset about falling through the cracks with the government handouts, basically not getting any. Wife lost a lot of her income, and she realized that she wouldn't be getting another paycheck until October. Such is the seasonal nature of her work. And it was just a timing issue there. Then my boy was asking for the pizza, and she was like, oh no, we can never spend money again. But to be clear, for anyone who was like concerned that we're on the breadline, we're not on the breadline. The only thing at risk, Matt, it's not whether we can eat food or not. It's mainly just my hopes and dreams of staying in media. That's the only thing at risk. Like, I will go back to engineering before I let them starve.
Yeah, no, I understand. We're in a different boat because we're covered by unemployment, but somewhat disturbingly, it seems like unemployment might not be extended, even though the industries in which we work will not be allowed to go back to work. So we're looking at
Eh.
You know, down the road, if they don't actually do something about it, it could get ugly very rapidly.
I know what you could
for
do.
us.
You could set up a scrap metal wagon and go around with a horse and cart collecting all the instruments from the musicians who can no longer work. Here's your scrap metal, and then you can make a fine trade selling that on.
Yeah, no, that. I suppose that's possible. There's lots of possibilities should it come to that, but it will, like you, mean an end to the media fund.
No, I know that. And just this morning, I had as if fate is just like telling me to quit. Just this morning, an engineering firm that has heard of me, that is less than a half an hour's drive away, that would allow me to just pick up my career exactly where I left off on decent money. Phoned me up this morning and said, "Hey, what's your circumstances at the moment?" And I went, "Oh, come on, universe. No, I'm not ready yet. I'm not quitting yet." Because I think the big thing is for me, if I go back now, it means hanging up the mic. Because doing engineering full-time and then media full-time, like you know how much that was hurting me, but at least we were leading up to something. I can't go back the other way and do that again. But look, we're not there yet. We're still fighting, and we had pizza from a pizza delivery firm, which I actually felt a little bit nervous about. But to set me straight on the science of it is our science man, Dr. Andrew Holding. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
So, was I taking a risk getting our very first delivery fast food of the lockdown?
I mean, yes and no.
Oh, God.
Hedge my bets.
Stop sitting on the fence. Experts.
Well,
we're sick of experts sitting on the fence. Just tell me.
The trouble with the word risk is like, did you take a risk getting out of bed this morning? Well, yes, you took a risk. Was it an unreasonable risk? Was it a silly risk? Was it likely to end up with disaster? I mean, we can probably look up the numbers of people who die getting out of bed every morning. I am still going to get out of bed.
Well, that's true.
So I think your odds with a pizza from the delivery man were fairly safe. I mean, it depends. Did you hug him?
Well, actually, no, okay, I'm going to say no, but I don't want to leave that in any doubt. No, I did not hug the pizza delivery guy, but I was quite surprised that he just handed me the pizza box. And so I didn't,
Yeah, because I would have thought they would sort of leave it, you take it, and you do some kind of transaction, like in a movie where it's like, you know, when they have like the heists or the trade-offs with the villain, and they like put the money down one bag and they put the briefcase of pizza in,
okay, so
the other side, and then you sort of huddle around and they find the briefcase and money's empty. I would have thought you would do something like that.
Many years ago now, I just remember this scene is I was on exercise in the middle of Norfolk somewhere, so we were doing like pretend military operations. We went, a piece of kit went down, and so we needed like a transmitter or something, and we didn't have it at our unit. But I phoned up my mate, and he happened to be, at a similar unit and had that part to hand. And I went, would you mind nipping to your workshop and coming and meeting me? It was an hour's drive. We met in the middle, and then I just realised how dodgy the scene looked. It was a military guy, me in uniform, in an Army Wolf Land Rover, and then my mate turned up in a BMW in like dressed to go out, like suit jacket and T-shirt, dressed to go out of this Mercedes. And then we came and like did a swap thing where like I handed over like a paperwork,
Brown paper envelope?
Well, no, it was like the paperwork in like a brown folder. And then we went over to his boot, picked up this piece of equipment, put it in the military, shook hands. And then I went, to anyone else looking, that looked like a secret spy operation.
Makes your life exciting.
Yeah, but the pizza guy was a little bit like that. He handed it over. He was really casual. And I was going, well, I don't want to be that guy. Do I now stop and go, no, back. This is my no-no zone. You should not have come. Put the pizza down and put the pizza down and back away. But I didn't do that in the moment. I took the pizza box off him and the bits and the chicken. Oh, the fried chicken. And then we went into the kitchen, decanted all the hot stuff onto chopping boards, and then put the kind of cardboard in a quarantine zone and then washed our hands. And I think that's the most we could have done. Do you think I'm reasonably safe?
I think that's reasonably safe. I mean, you hope the guy's also taking protection for himself because he's the guy who's really at risk.
He didn't seem like it.
He's seeing all these people, and you would hope that he's not hugging people, kissing people every time he drops a picture, of which, from what you're telling me, he's not. And then maybe there's some virus on the boxes, but as you say, You take it out of the boxes. You don't, rub the food on the outside of the box, which you wouldn't want to do anyway, because it's been in the back of a motorbike or a car or somewhere. And then you wash your hands, and then you're minimizing that risk. And risk is all about what is the level of risk and what level do you accept.
Yeah.
And, and then you've got to decide you've also got to put the benefit in. The benefit was pizza.
Yeah, I know, which is relatively low, but given that we've not had any fast food, actually it was a fantastic morale boost. Like, everyone really appreciated and enjoyed it. I'll just say John Pollard says that my car park story was more like a drug deal than a spy thing. I mean, yeah, that's reasonable. It definitely did look dodgy. Sharp-dressed man out of a BMW doing a late-night exchange in a car park with a squaddy. But yeah, and Jez Dog, I must be watching the wrong pizza delivery movies. Yes, I know what you're talking about. I nearly repeated that out loud, and I won't. Hello to our live chat room. You can find us by going to... It's really hard to find us on YouTube because there's lots of things called Remain Indoors. But,
isn't there one thing that comes up a lot?
Yeah, and then lots of other things as well that are still, more popular than this. But I've set up a webpage. You can go to missedapexpodcast.com/Remain Indoors, or you can find us at Indoors Remain on Twitter. So there we go. And then find us on the live stream. Join these fine people: Kaylee, Simon, Trevor, John, Dododob, and Jez. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the shed. We are going to be talking some science with Dr. Holding here. Levels of risk. So like I said to the girl, she came out with me to deliver some things. And she came out with me in the car. I don't know if that's against the rules or not, but she was like, Daddy, I want to go in the car. And she was like a puppy. She's like, yay, I get to go in the car. I was like, shall I wind the window down so you can stick your head out as well? But she was like super excited. And what did she do? She got carried away. So I knocked on the door where we were delivering a thing, and I left it outside, and I went to go back. She got all excited and started like touching car doors and things. And I went, what are you doing? And she went, oh, I don't know. I was like, why are you touching your face? She went, oh yeah, we're not supposed to touch our face. And then she was like, oh my God, have I got coronavirus now? I'm like, no. It's not about that, Matt, is it? It's about how much risk you're willing to take and generally reducing contact.
Yeah, and one would think that the younger one is, the less aware of risk one might be. Wasn't there a game that Treeface was playing right before everything closed?
Oh, yes. No, thanks for bringing that up. And Matt, I've mistakenly told you to turn your mic down. You were exactly fine where you were, sir. I do love playing the audio's level dance. This one was my fault. Yeah, so with the schools opening, Andrew, obviously everybody is having to assess this risk situation. You've got little children as well.
Yep.
Mine are 10 and 8. Yours are just a little
10 and 8.
10 and 8, the same. You haven't got a third one, have you?
No.
No, okay, don't do that. That would be a terrible idea.
No, you don't be outnumbered.
No, and I think 2's too many. Okay, 2's.
I mean, you were better when you outnumbered them.
Exactly, I think so too. So our school sent us a questionnaire, a survey, and I'm assuming all schools have done that, basically saying if we have a place for your child in June or July, whenever they open, do you want it? And there was 2 tick boxes, yes or no. I'm like, well, hang on a minute, no, I haven't got any information. Put it this way: is it safe? If safe, yes. If not safe, no. I would like to know if the royal children are going back to school. That's going to influence my decision. Are the cabinet ministers, are their children going back to school? That's going to influence my decision as well. But for me, once you open schools, that's the end of social distancing. There was a whole paragraph of like, oh, we are going to make them wait in an orderly queue, and they will take their temperature as they go into school, and half the children will levitate at playtime, and half will stay on the ground, half will be in an underground playground. And I was like, no, because as Matt's referring to, before the lockdown, my son's friends were playing Corona tag, where if you were you licked your hand, and then you had to run up to people, tagging them, and they would be like, you've got coronavirus, you're going to die. And I was like, that's children, right? And they're not even tiny kids. They're like 9 and 10. Once you open schools, that's the end of social distancing. It's done.
So did you see the photo where, and I don't know if it was a school just making fun of the situation or whether they were actually considering this, but they taped out squares in the playground, and there's one child sitting in each square. And it was like social distancing at playtime. And it was the most dystopian picture I've ever seen. It was like children in their invisible prison cells, just and every child looks so miserable. They like had one prescribed toy, and it's like, no,
Oh.
this is your life. This is what's going.
Look,
So I think,
yeah, go on.
as you say, it's risk. What's the benefit to getting kids at school? Well, for me, my sanity. I've been teaching kids 9 to 1
Oh
every
yeah, no,
morning.
I hear you.
and-
I hear you.
But to be honest, that's quite a low cost, So you can understand the government probably wants to, get the economy running because that's how the world works. I'm
Understandable.
not saying I agree or disagree with any of this, by the way. I just want to say this
Yeah,
is
no, sure.
precious. I just don't want people thinking I'm saying go to work. But then you've also got the infections and who's going to look after kids? Well, grandparents might be involved at the moment and they're at risk. So actually, kids not being in schools can have other risks that we don't think about.
Granted.
One of the big ones before we close the schools, which, because I'm a school governor and we were chatting about, was what happens to the children who are in unsafe environments at home? And of course, the schools are working really hard to deal with that right now. But you have to make a decision. As soon as you stop bringing that kid into school, who's checking up on them every day to check that child isn't vulnerable still? And that will have an effect on the risk and safety of those children. So it's a really complex problem. And looking outside your bubble is really, really hard. And the other,
I'll just speak to that. Like, say, from my point of view, because I work at home and some of my wife's work is at home. We've certainly shifted to at-home work. Like, we're in a very privileged position now where we can fit our work around the homeschooling. So it's really easy for me to sit here and say, oh, well, we'll just keep them at home. On the other hand, I get the feeling, and you must know from school, being a school governor as well, that actually the more parents that can keep their kids at home and can thrive with the homeschooling probably takes the pressure off of schools a bit.
Yeah. And, I saw the headlines that said the teachers need to be braver, which really got me angry
that
because
can bog off.
there are teachers in school at the moment teaching kids of key workers, many of which are in the NHS. So they're actually not the front line, but they're on the second line. And no mention of the parents who are going into those houses of those vulnerable children to check we're okay. And that is happening. And I would challenge you as a newly qualified teacher to go around to someone's house
Yeah.
and check up on them. I mean, I wouldn't go around someone's house and check on them. We know how that can go if you handle it wrong. So there's all these other things that just aren't getting ignored. And the people who seem to be most complaining the schools need to open seem to be the people who are actually fairly well privileged, have jobs they can do at home, but are being disrupted. And they just want their free childcare. And I know it's a horrible thing to say, but that seems to be the noisiest people, where the people we're talking about without that social privilege seem to actually be the people who go, well, I can't afford a nanny, I can't do, and that's where I'm hearing from. Of course, I could be wrong.
Look, I think that there's great arguments on both sides. Like, you cannot dismiss the economic damage. You can't dismiss the fact that there are kids who rely on schools. I was one of them. I had a healthy diet only because the school system existed. I completely get that. I'm not sympathetic to any of that. The only thing I don't want is for people to. It's got a bit serious here, isn't it? The only thing I don't want is for us to pretend that we can open schools and magically have social distancing at the same time. They're not compatible. So look, let's be honest. If we're saying we need to get the economy going, we need to get people back to work, that's why we're opening schools, and there is an inherent risk and we just have to accept it, or the country dies in other ways, then fine, we'll do that. But also, the royal kids have to go back to school as well, and Boris Johnson's 18 kids have to go back to school. I don't know. That's slander. I'm just going along with a cultural meme there. But do you know what I mean? If cabinet ministers' kids are going back to crowded schools exactly the same as my kids, I'll start thinking about it, but not a minute before.
And there is, what we're hinting here is, recession does cost life. So we know where the whole impact on actual people is really hard to work out. But I think that thing is what you're talking about is that evidence and that confidence in what the government's saying. And I don't know if you saw the comment, but there's a lovely one about how you can have a nanny if you keep the window open, was it? And you can drive as long as you don't look left. I've got confused which ones were made up and which ones are real. But some of them, I mean, I don't understand how opening a window stops viruses spreading. And I work in labs with viruses. We have complicated filter systems. Everything we work on is really boring, but I just read the information. I go, this doesn't inspire confidence.
Okay.
And children are petri dishes for infection anyway.
Gross. Children are gross. They're absolutely gross. So basically, if that's my only point, and I'll move on from this. That was my only point, is that if schools are open, social distancing is done. And I think we should just carry on under those.
The only caveat, because I will, is if you then keep certain parts of the population shielded and they're the ones at risk and you knew who they were at risk, then maybe we can make it work. But I think what worries me is, we know certain subsections like old people, they're at risk.
Yeah.
But there's other people we have no idea why. And I have a friend's father who, aged 50, fully healthy, has died because of this. Should he have gone back to work? He would have been sent back to work. There's no risk factor anyone knew about. So, but I've got my friend grieving for the fact his father's died, and I think that shows the human versus the stats. And as soon as it becomes about individuals and your friends and your family, it's no one cares about the stats. They care about the fact that dad's gone.
Yeah, we had a friend who, one of my wife's work friends, like her opposite number, was in a hospital 40 days on a vent, got a experimental medicine, and is now at home. But what worries me with all of this talk is that the underlying assumption is we now understand the virus and how it affects people. But I keep on seeing reports of all these different types of systemic long-term damage by people who are under age 40 and will be living the rest of their lives. And to me, it suggests, and I would happily be corrected, it suggests that we don't really entirely understand the mechanics of this virus in the human body. Therefore, we cannot adequately assess the risk that we are asking people to take when they are sent back to work.
And just to answer some of the chat room things there before we move on, people are arguing about the various risks of primary schools, secondary schools, etc. Yeah, no, I get it. That's fine. There's a true answer, but whatever applies to my kids has to apply to everyone. It can't just be that it's select kids we're sending back because otherwise the economy grinds to a halt, but people who can afford to not send their kids and therefore not afford to have some risk get to dip out of it, because it's either safe or it's not, and that's it. So I'm not arguing the relative levels of safety, but let's talk about Andrew's hair. You've gone for a very different COVID haircut than we have. No point sweeping it back now. It's too late. Put it back where it was.
I've got a great hairline. That's what I'll say, though. Look at that.
You've got a better hairline than me, right? Okay, so whenever I post pictures of myself online, someone goes, "Ooh, that hairline's not going to last long." I've always had that hairline. I've always had that deep widow's peak, which my dad has also had. It's a natural widow's peak. But you've gone for a kind of 90s flop forward, which I quite admire, whereas me and Matt have gone more for the Antonio Banderas kind of streak back. Have you considered a home haircut?
Yes. Very briefly.
So,
and the trouble is, you can't cut your own hair, can you? You need someone else to do it, because certainly by the time we're talking about the back, and even the ears. I mean, it's hot, I can't talk on mic and point at my ears, but my hair is so far over my. How am I going to get that nice curve followed around the ear?
So I used to cut my own hair all the time, just with a bare blade clippers, and just shave it off because it was just easier. And but I guess I was younger and fit into a tight t-shirt better then, so I didn't need the hair as much. Now I need the hair to offset my other failing looks. But I will show the live stream. Anyone who doesn't follow me on Twitter, what are you doing? @SpannersReady. So if you two flick over to the live stream, you'll see my hair yesterday. Look at Twitter @SpannersReady. Click on the media tab and you'll see it. My wife was complaining about my morning hair, which was quite wild and it's getting quite long now. So I had a solution. I whacked an Alice band on. It was my daughter's gold frilly Alice band. And I thought, problem solved. I thought I looked like a Serie A footballer. Still not happy, Andrew. Still not happy. Good. Apparently I'm on my own here. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
I didn't know if you wanted more comments.
I'm
I was
joined.
going to mock you if you let me.
Yeah, you can mock away if you like.
But yeah, no, it's. So I just don't know what to do. One option is just go for a grade 1 all over. It works. It gets out of the way. You look like you're going to mug someone, but there's nobody in my house I'm going to mug, so it's fine.
Mug. Speaking of mugs, Matt, your wife basically pointed out to your child why you and all men, all cis males, why we're cis het males, straight males are all basically mugs.
Yeah, well, this was a horrible thing, because I had discovered. So I'm sure everyone at this point in their audience is very well of our HBO situation,
Okay, just remind us quickly.
right? So we got the free HBO, and I started getting into Westworld and realized there was no way I was going to finish it before free HBO ran out, and so I may have accidentally forgotten to remind the wife to cancel it, and then I might have let it run up to the deadline again, and she said I'm definitely canceling it, and I still wasn't done with Westworld. So I said, didn't you want to watch that Chernobyl show again? Maybe we should see when we would run out. And sure enough, there wasn't enough time for us to catch the Chernobyl thing again for my daughter before. So now we've got a whole extra free month of HBO. So now I'm all about let's watch all the movies, and I went to see what movies are being ditched. And one of them is this movie called Gross Point Blank. And my wife and I saw it when we were dating before we were married. And my wife says to my daughter, as I point out that this movie is something that she would probably enjoy too, says, "Oh, yeah, don't you remember that? You really didn't want to go see it, but it was back when you were totally enamored of me, so you'd do whatever I wanted." And we wound up seeing it, and then you liked it anyway. And to my daughter, I'm like, okay, she could have said this to me, and I would have laughed and chuckled and acknowledged it. But to my daughter, I mean, this is like not helping at all.
She's passing that on to the next generation of women now to be like, look, whilst before you're married, he will do anything you want. So string all that. And that's crazy. Like, they know how much power they have. Deep down, you want to think that maybe it's all equal. But when we were dating, and even I guess now, my wife knows full well that I was punching out of my weight and that I would have done anything. It's terrifying to know that they know how to use and abuse that power, Matt. I don't like it.
It weirdly reminds me of you asking Vivi if you had done it correctly.
If I had done what correctly?
Blamed other people for your own mistake. And remember, she said, no, you have to turn around and give this look as you walk out of the room.
Yeah, no, that was Vivi. I said, yeah, basically I'd committed a domestic crime of leaving my little cereal bar packet out, Andrew. And because it was going to be messy. And so she picked it up instead. And it was messy and it went all over the floor. She goes, why did you leave that there? I went, oh, because I thought that would happen. Anyway, so that's it. So we have to double down and go, I didn't know. I didn't mean to. I thought someone else was going to do it. And then my daughter offered her advice, which was, now you have to be angry, go out of the door, and then look back at your parents to try and make them feel guilty. That was her top tip.
So my daughter was not having the best of days yesterday and got very frustrated over something. And I just went to my wife, ignore her. And so my daughter storms off. And this is the 8-year-old. And she goes to her bedroom. I can hear her fake crying. And I'm just like, don't go. And then she comes down, still crying, pushes her way into the sofa behind me. And is now wedged between me and the back of the seat. Still going, it's not fair. And you're like, I'm just going to pretend this isn't happening. You can see it was just escalating as you think, what do I need to do to get some attention? It's like, but if I engaged, I'd lost.
Absolutely. Gosh. And thing is, I can see my daughter practicing future arguments that she's going to have with husbands down the line and almost like looking to my wife for approval. And, her looking over going, yep, that's a good one. Well done. Rubbish.
I like the way you've already anticipated multiple husbands for your daughter.
Well, she's the
boy. You're useless now. I will go get another.
Exactly. Well, the thing is that the whole meme is like, you've got a shotgun. It's like, you come anywhere near my daughter and, I'm going to use this shotgun on you. And I don't really have that feeling at all. I feel sympathetic for future husbands and future partners. Thing is, my daughter will talk about future relationships, and she's always very interested to talk about relationships and love and families and how that all happens. And she talks about boys she likes. I'm like, no, you're 8. You talk to mum about that kind of stuff. If you say to the boy like, oh, your friend Harriet or whatever, do you like her? Do you like her? And he's all like, shut up, Dad. No. And he's like, really doesn't want to talk about it. But we talk through the stuff with little V, and we always have the imaginary, terrible future boyfriend called Chad. And it's like, Chad coming round here. Oh, why won't he put shoes on? So I'm all braced, Matt. I'm all braced for the Chads of this world coming into our lives. And you should be braced because you can't be very far away from that at all.
Well, lockdown, here we come.
Oh yeah. So you orchestrated the whole corona. It wasn't the bats in China at all. It was fathers of teenage daughters.
I shall remain commentless.
Let's have some science since we've got Dr. Holding here. My boy had a question for you. He's not coming on the show, but he may come on for some sciencey stuff with us in the future. But his question was quite morbid, and I've noticed the trait with him. It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, isn't it? But his questions all centre around, and I'm going to show him this later, all centre around the death of the universe. And he was asking me these questions, and I went, oh, here we go. I know all about, Big Bang, Big Crunch, thermal heat death. And then he went, what's the current, where did he get this language from? He said, what's the current scientific thinking towards which theory is preferred? And I went, I don't know. So how's the universe going to end? How are you science types now? Because you all have a club and you all agree.
Yeah, we just text each other all the
Just
time.
text each other. What's the best
Fine.
theory on how it's all going to end?
So I think the current theory is the heat death of the universe. So this is the idea that everything just sort of fizzles around to being lukewarm everywhere. It's a bit sad.
Yeah, but it's not even. So obviously it's entropy. So it's the idea that order goes into disorder slowly over time.
So the entropy bit of maths is this idea that whenever you see whether something's going to happen, there are a few things that need to happen there's a few parameters that need to be there for it to happen. And one is entropy. And entropy is usually described to people as a measure of disorder. But it's a little bit confusing because there are certain things about science that make this necessary. So there is an assumption to define what direction time goes in that says that entropy increases as time goes forward. That's time's arrow. So you almost define the movement of time as an increase of entropy. So,
Oh, okay.
and the key thing to also know is that is entropy across the entire universe. So that's why you can exist, because you're a massive 2 fingers up at entropy.
Oh, I thought you were just saying. I thought you were commenting on my weight. I'm like, geez,
No.
everyone's put pounds on. These are COVID pounds.
That's your pizza. But so yeah, you're really organized in your own way, and that would some of it seemed like a real big issue to put with these laws of thermodynamics. But actually, what biology is an amazing bit of solution that's come about just randomly that couples creating disorder to things that make a bit more order. So as long as the checkbook balances that they make more disorder than they create, you're fine. So, and there's that coupling for every biological process, and that's your metabolism. You eat stuff.
So
And
even
it fixes for balance.
So entropy is like this, like gravity. It's like this force pulling me towards disorder, but my biological systems are like a parachute. Or Matt, you help. You've got a better analogy.
Yeah, very much. It's like your children's room.
Okay.
Start with the room has been cleaned up and observe for a week. It tends towards disorder, and the only balancing force in this case would be a parent who gets simply tired of it and then goes and puts all the clothes back in the drawer, puts all the toys away. But that takes energy, right?
Yeah, that's the key thing. You need that energy, and that means that your order in your bedroom has actually caused disorder at the power station for the vacuum cleaner, or disorder at the farm to feed the cattle. So you can never win at this.
Okay, so that's why things spiral into disorder. So a sun that's held together by the way it was formed and gravity and all that, it will eventually lose all its energy or blow up. The planets will dissipate. So eventually things will stop creating energy. We'll stop having these systems.
Well, we're not creating energy. That's the key thing.
Okay, sorry. Will it stop
Because
giving out energy?
Is constant. You can borrow it very briefly, but for most normal bits of physics, energy is constant. So you can just convert it from one from another. And really what's happening as the universe goes on is if you have low entropy energy, so energy that's like something all traveling in the same direction along a line, that's really useful, because you can imagine if you think about a bullet, it makes a hole. If you took that same energy and just spread it out randomly as heat, it won't do much.
Got it.
So what happens is the universe goes on, that's all focused low entropy energy gets spread into high entropy heat. And that's why we've lost it.
Now, is that related to the whole expanding universe idea, or is that completely unrelated?
I mean, that even if you had a static universe that wasn't expanding, you still have that challenge. So that's just the law of the universe. Of course, that physics keeps moving on. Actually, the sort of the creation and end of the universe is one of these topics which every time I check on it has changed.
Right.
So when I like a few years ago, I thought we all happily agreed that at the Big Bang, time started. It was the beginning. And then I was chatting to a physicist probably not that long ago, and he goes, "Oh no. What happened at the Big Bang is all the laws of physics changed, and there was almost certainly something before the Big Bang." And I was like,
wait, what? So
okay.
Oh man. Oh, so I'm out of date already. So
Yeah.
okay. Let's not go to the beginning of the universe. We could probably do another show on that. Right, we're going towards the end of the universe now. So the Big Bang, there's a big expansion. Everything's generally flying apart from the local systems where gravity is holding them together.
Well, no, but they're still flying up. I mean, this is what's so weird. There's a great experiment you can do for this because I can never get my head around it. If you take a balloon and draw dots on it, if you blow up that balloon, every dot on the surface moves apart from every other dot.
Yeah.
So the universe, everything is moving away from everything all the time.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like this. There's no center.
Okay, but what I meant was like if you and me hold hands in the universe, just you and me, Andrew, like our two dots will still stay together on the balloon, won't they? So we can hold on to each other, even though you and me will expand away from other people that are holding hands together in an embrace of science. So that's fine. So there was, when I was a kid, I'm sure people used to say, well, and at some point the gravity will gather back everything together and we'll all go into a big crunch.
Yep. So basically this depends on how much matter is in the universe. And this is where we get into the bits of physics that I just think they're making up, which is all the dark energy and dark matter. And it's not because actually I don't I trust them, but it is when you start putting dark in front of anything in physics, generally it means they haven't got a good idea what it is. And the dark energy is what makes it expand more than it should, and the dark matter is what keeps the galaxies together. So we have these two things that they're basically are fudge factors in equations because you can measure the stuff, you can predict something there. It's really hard to see. So we're still learning about the universe, and where those things are, how that work, will define the fate of the universe.
So we're probably not in a static universe. We're still expanding because we can tell that from the redshifts of other galaxies and stuff like that. But we're either going to keep doing that forever and just eventually get so big and spread out. Entropy also is part of that. And then we just go to nothing and nothing is organized and it's all spread out and we're cold and we die. We die. But what surprises me about that is even like on a molecular level as well, like even atoms stop forming.
Yes, so atoms slowly break down. And one of the key measurements was the fact that the proton, one of the key building blocks of elements, decays. So once you know that matter itself has a lifetime, that is pretty depressing.
That's annoying. So and there's no way to make more. So have we got all the protons that we're ever going to have?
Well, there's a turnover. So they can make more, but not. We're going in one direction.
Oh man! So that's it. So like, even if I get myself into a robot body, which is fully the plan, and then the plan is then to escape the Earth, seek somewhere else out, and even if I'm just a robot with a nuclear reactor, I can just keep, I can chill out in space until a good planet comes along. But eventually, even the protons in my fake robot body are gonna disappear as well. Like there's no. I mean, I'll get a good trillion or so years out of it.
Yep, you're not going to lack time, but it will be and then of course maybe you'll invent a time machine and you go back and we'll all be cool.
Time machine, right? Okay,
that's what you
I'm
need
on
to
it.
do.
I'm on it. That's all I needed was that next tag, Matt. Time machine. I'm on it. And still, with all that limitless time, I'm still not learning a language or the ukulele.
Well, that's very much on you. I have a very complicated question, vaguely related to this.
Oh,
that
good.
You may or may not know about.
Go on.
In that chemistry book that I referenced, that I read to my daughter, they talked about a thing called the fine structure constant. And it's having to be an absolutely correct number for the universe to have formed. And the reason I bring it up is because in the book, he said that there was this natural nuclear reactor and that the person who studied it found an odd amount of byproduct from nuclear fission that could only be explained if the fine structure constant was slightly different than it had to be at the beginning of the universe. And I'm just curious, I haven't done any follow-up on it at all, but do you know anything about that? And has there been, I mean, is this a thing where like, oh, gravity just might gradually change, or is this just a mathematical explanation and we really just don't know the answer yet?
We're gonna have to start with what is the fine. What's it? The fine
Structure constant.
Yeah, we're getting into some pretty deep.
Oh, is there an easy
science.
way for a dumb X squaddy to understand what the fine constant is?
So yes, there is. How useful it is to use a different question. So if do you remember sodium lamps? Those really yellow lamps you get, like the street lamps.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So they're yellow because sodium, when it's excited energetically, not by your good jokes, it forms two lines of light emission, and they're about the color you see, and they're quite close to each other. Now, most elements have one of these. Hydrogen has this, and actually, you're quite used to the elements like hydrogen and helium light spectra because obviously that's what makes stars. So the fine structure constants are the constants which explain the gap in the spectral lines of light that come out of hydrogen. So this is something in a lab you can measure. You excite the hydrogen, and then you get these colors coming out of it. And when you look on basically it's a thing that converts the light from an element into a rainbow. Only certain lines appear. So if you do it on a sodium lamp, you get the two yellow lines. If you do it on hydrogen, you get the hydrogen lines. And that fine structure between the gaps in it, that's important constant for the universe.
Okay, so, and would all universes that be the case? Or if you created a million universes, would you get all different fine constants and they would then fizzle out because you only can exist if you have this one type?
So my understanding is that it's like really special that we have the constants we have because many of the things wouldn't work without it.
Which proves Jesus.
Yes. But the issue with this kind of argument is, yes, it's special, but if it wasn't that way, we would not be here to observe it.
Yeah, do you know the best example I like of this is water in a puddle. That's like saying, but if it was not a deliberate plan, then how come I am the exact size and shape of this hole? Look how this hole is perfectly filled for the amount of water I have. If the puddle was bigger, they would just be bigger, or if there was no hole, then there would be no puddle there to wonder at how well suited the hole was. I think.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't know. That was
You've
pretty
confused
bad.
me more.
Me too. I'm so sorry, Matt. I'm out of my depth a lot.
I think that's the idea. Basically, if this ratio wasn't what it was, a lot of the elements that make us and our planets and life up would not be able to exist, as I understand it.
And
because
I think,
yeah,
but the same could be said if you change the gravitational constant just slightly, it messes everything up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's magical. It just means this form of universe with everything we know and hold dear.
Right. In other words, we don't know how many other attempts there were before this happened.
Or in parallel.
Yes.
And
parallel.
And you look at things like we're carbon-based life. So that requires several features of carbon make it really useful. And they're the features like it forms 4 bonds. So you get these much flexible chemistry because if you have 2 bonds, you're going to have 2 into out. Actually, if you go above 4, it doesn't work very well either for other reasons. Silicon, I think it was in Star Trek a few times as an alternative form of life. It's a bit like carbon, but it really, carbon can form really long chains. Silicon gets stuck about 8 and things like this.
They proved it in the 1995 film Evolution. So with David Duchovny.
Selenium Shampoo, I think, was important in that too.
That's such a good film. I'm going to go back and watch that again.
It's on Netflix again.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
But the thing is, all those things that make those other elements poor for life, as our limited understanding of it is, because we've only ever seen one type of life, because all life on Earth comes from one ancestor.
Moses.
Is the fact that maybe if you tweak the parameters slightly, then these things work. But that's really hard to prove and really hard to model and very hypothetical and not really useful for a lot of science. And whilst I'm quite happy with Blue Sky's research, just sitting around drinking whiskey going, could there be silicon life? That's sci-fi, not science.
I think Treeface, my boy, might have solved it slightly because we're talking about time travel. And so he's pretty on board with You can't go backwards. He's fine with the arrow of time. Seriously, this kid, right? He's hit and miss whether he does his shoelaces up, hit and miss whether he leaves the house with pants on or not. But he turned to me and he went, "You've got to respect the arrow of time." He said, "But what if there are all alternate universes, but they start on slightly different timescales?" So his thinking was, you can move between the parallel universes to exist in a different time, and that's how you time travel. I went,
But
"Phew, okay."
so that's kind of a bit like what they were saying in the latest Marvel movie, which is Endgame. Was it Endgame or was it? Anyway,
Yeah.
The one where they did all the time travel. What they said there was they weren't time traveling; they were going to other universes and interfering with them, and then they came back to theirs with the bits they had taken, and therefore what they did in the past didn't change for future because it was a different universe. And then they kind of contradicted themselves in the last 5 minutes. But the reality is no one's ever traveled back in time. Interestingly, what people are less aware of, it's actually quite easy to travel forward in time. So we can do that. If you want to travel forward in time,
1 second per second.
we can do it quicker because that's relativity.
Explain how, because there are lots of situations where I would love to skip forward a little bit, like in the famous Adam Sandler movie Click.
So the trouble is it's not something you're going to do with something in your pocket, but if you accelerate towards the speed of light, time for you slows down. But the other way of looking at that is your time stays the same because it would from your perception,
Yeah.
and everyone else speeds up. So if you take a spaceship and you fly to Alpha Centauri and back again as fast as you possibly can, you'll take the time it would take light to travel if you went maximum speed, but your time could have slowed down so it would feel like an instant to you. It uses a huge amount of energy. Let's not ignore that. And the Earth would have moved on years, but you won't have aged. So you could go and come back and see whether we survived COVID.
So basically, you're saying every time I get on a plane and fly to Europe, I'm actually gaining a little bit of time because I'm going faster with less gravity. So my time is
Ooh.
slower than everybody else's.
Yep, and
Okay,
this
then.
is actually a real problem because if you try to make a system that requires on really accurate clocks in orbit, which you may have heard of, because this is something most of us use, and you try and position yourself from, and you find all the clocks are just slightly wrong, and that is GPS. So GPS has to cope
Wow.
with the fact that the time from a moving in orbit so fast and in different gravitational field means there's a little error in all those clocks they have to correct for. And when you do that, your GPS works better.
Well, there we go. I don't know if I've learned anything, Matt. As always, I'm going to listen back. I listen back to the Dr. Andrew shows.
Relativity is not something I expect to have to explain on a daily basis. So there we go. But it's what I love about that is relativity is one of the sort of things people say when they want to sound really complicated. Yet it actually has an effect on something most of us carry in our pocket.
It's amazing to me. I was just, I was just going to go get excited because I forgot you have a chemistry background. You were talking about carbon bonds, and I don't know how it is homeschooling your kid, but my kid is doing chemistry. And so I feel very proud of myself. I feel like I'm in school whenever you're on. I want to raise my hand and say, ooh, we learned about carbon bonds because I helped my daughter learn about saturated and unsaturated and ane and ene and ein endings to stuff like that. But is it the case? Is it really going to be the case that some of these structural constants that we think belong to the universe, are they always going to be fixed in the way that we imagine them to be? I mean, that was the original nut of the question.
Oh, yeah. Can it change?
So my answer would be there is, as far as there's evidence some of them are changing very, very slightly over the lifetime of the universe.
What about time? Can time change? The rate it travels?
Well, as we just said, time slows and changes depending on what you're doing.
But
So
we're
that-
getting faster and faster because we're expanding faster and faster. Does that mean that time is slowing
we're
down
not
for us?
accelerating
Oh, I thought
because the
we were.
universe is stretching. This is the balloon thing. You're staying in the same place and everything's moving away from
Oh,
you.
I see.
But relativity, being is everything's relative. If you move yourself to one of the other planets, everything else is still moving away from you. And this is actually where special relativity versus general relativity comes in. Is someone said, well, if that's the case, how do you know who's moving? And that's when acceleration comes in. And let's stop the lesson there.
Okay,
Because
before we
that's
get
the twin
to
paradox.
inertial frames of reference, let's
Exactly.
go to Matt.
All right. Well, I had a follow-up question about
Oh
time
my
travel.
dear
if that's
God.
okay.
Yep.
A quick one, because I need to talk about gaming and what Dr. Andrew's doing.
Yeah, well, we both need to talk about gaming. But are there particles that travel the wrong way in time? Do antiparticles travel the wrong way in time or not?
So, no, as far as I'm aware. But I think if you look at the maths, some of it works if you flip the sign on the time, all the other parameters correct for you. So are they traveling back in time? Well, no, because we define time as increase of entropy. But mathematically, I think some of them actually do look like you've just switched for sign on. And there are some hypothetical ones like tachyons, which were theorized and become the staple of Star Trek, but there's no evidence for yet.
You have to reverse the polarity. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the dilithium clouds, if you pause time, draw a smiley face, go mad. We've got it. We've got it covered. Picard did it first, just like with everything. Dr. Andrew Holding, you are a serious science man. Okay, your job is literally to cure cancer. In many ways, you would be forgiven for thinking you could be the most boring kind of person that exists. Your life would be very, very dull. I don't have a point. I just wanted to say that. Oh no, I do have a point. No, I do have a point. I do have a point. What surprises me is that you're not like that at all, and you have a sense of fun. Often it throws me because we'll be in a radio studio and we'll be having a fun backwards and forwards, and then as soon as the red light goes on, you go, "Oh yes, we are very serious, Dr. Andrew Holding now," and I'm still trying to like have a laugh, and you're like, "Yeah, that's obviously that's silly," but here's the serious science answer. I'm like, "Oh, you've thrown me under the juvenile bus." But you are a big juvenile child because you are doing Twitch streams playing old Indiana Jones games. Telling me about it. Tell me about it.
So on Thursday at 9 p.m. on my Twitch channel, which I only just got, it's linked from my Twitter feed as well. I'm going to be playing Indiana Jones Fate of Atlantis live.
on what system?
And the reason I'm doing this is because I was looking at things to raise charity, and it was basically do a run or Twitch stream. And no one wants to see 30 minutes of me hot and sweaty. I thought about getting people to pay for me to stop. I thought might work.
I think it's called OnlyFans. Is that what you're? I think that's what you're reaching at here. If you would pay money to charity to see Dr. Holding all hot and sweaty for 30 minutes, let us know. You know,
we can do it.
Andrew Holding on Twitter. But firstly, I've got loads of questions. I've got tons of questions.
Yeah.
Firstly, Dr. Indiana Jones, he was a doctor also. On what system is this? What version?
This is on PC.
Is it an old game? Is it an old game?
It's an old game. So I reckon it's about 25 years old. It's a puzzle game. It's a click and point. So you have to, and I probably don't remember any of the puzzles. I did play it when I was about 10 or 12.
Brilliant.
And I'm going to play it for 2-3 hours, depending how many people check in. And the reason I'm doing this, which is really important, is so CIUK, which funds cancer it's a big cancer charity in the UK. They've had to just cut a load of funding for their researchers, which is really, really challenging because if you think about PhD students, they've got this massive opportunity to do research to help us work on basically curing cancer, as you put it, and they stuck at home. And the people who've gone into these PhDs to go and do experimental research, they're sitting at home and they're trying other things. They're trying computational biology, so science on a laptop and stuff, but that isn't really what they're there for. And they're going to need money to basically finish off their experiments when they come out of this, because their grant was 3 years. They've lost possibly 6 months at the end of this.
Yeah, bad.
And CIUK, as I say, people aren't donating because people have lost their jobs, which I totally get. But some of us, as we mentioned earlier, are in better positions. And I kind of want to encourage people that it's really a good time to donate to charity if you can. And, you know, cancer hasn't gone away for cancer patients, just that COVID's happened. So this is why I'm trying to push this and have a bit of fun with it. And as I say, I'll be playing this computer game. There'll be a chat. You can ask me science about my research, you can ask me science about the computer game, or you can just heckle me like Expanders does, and we'll give it a go. And as I say, it's Thursday, 9 p.m. UK time on Twitch. My handle's Andrew Holding, but I've linked it from Twitter, and I'll put it wherever else I can to help people find it.
I will put it in the show notes if you send me a WhatsApp and remind me.
I will do.
But really interesting. Like, has this just come out of like left field where you want to do online streaming, or is this something that's, you know, it's always been there where you go? Because I've always fancied it. I see those guys doing the gaming streams, and I know a guy who does retro games. Give him a plug as well. The 16-bit Dad and Gareth Torrance, and you know, the audiences aren't massive for those things unless you're like the big guys. But I checked Gareth's out because I was like, no, that's going to be, how interesting can that be? And it was really fun. He was commenting on all the characters. And then I kind of got into, is this a story-driven game, Indiana Jones, as well? So I actually got into the story of his thing. And before I knew it, I'd been sat watching a grown man playing computer games for 40 minutes and went, oh, yeah, no, I see the appeal.
And it's a better story than the last movie. So, that's...
That's not hard. He's not going to be... Right, let's talk about it. Whilst we're here then, very quickly, that's the one where he... Oh, I'm thinking of Iron Man. Who was in the fridge?
In a lead fridge to
That's
avoid
it,
a nuclear
yes.
blast. Yep.
So, he would cook in
None
the
of
lead
that.
fridge. But I find the most interesting one, because one of the biggest movie mistakes that I hate is, like, they are travelling really fast, but because they were in something, they're fine. In reality, his organs would have squished against his ribcage.
So this is like Superman in that movie where he stops the plane, doesn't he?
Yes.
And the plane just happily can be held by a hand on the nose cone, which I'm sure it wasn't designed for. I mean, this is engineering, isn't it?
As a logistics engineer, yes, I can tell you that's not the human factors department would have been going nuts about that. There's no handhold, there's no grips for Superman's hands. No, not designed for that.
So Indiana Jones: Fate of Atlantis, much better plot than any of those movies, and I'm really looking forward to it.
When are you doing it again? I've forgotten.
So it's Thursday 9 p.m. And to answer your question, why did I get into it? So it's because I have half the kit here because I'm doing remote learning. So I've already got the camera, I've already got the green screen, so the people I'm teaching don't see my house because nobody wants to see my laundry room, and my computer can run Indiana Jones. That's half the reason we've gone retro. Is you need the hardware.
Yeah.
And my cancer research budget is not being spent on gaming hardware.
Shameful. Matt, see, I was sitting there going, I really want to do that. But then I forgot we do literally every 2 weeks stream us gaming on our iRacing. So we do kind of do it. But I would also be tempted to do like, what have you got at home? Have you got like an Xbox? What are you, an Xbox family?
Yeah. That was actually the tragedy of last night. Is my daughter is so bereft of companionship. She actually said, "Come play our old zombie killing game with me again." And I said, "Fine," because we had the old Xbox 360. I mean, then we got the Xbox One finally, like last November, and we went to play, and we couldn't because the game wouldn't allow her to play because of her age.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was like, what? And apparently at age 15, your sensibilities are still too delicate to shoot zombies or watch movies like Grosse Point Blank. And it wasn't until I went to the settings and instituted a global change and granted her permission to do anything she wanted that we could actually go back to being a normal family gathered around our Xbox at night.
I have to admit, on some of the stuff we do online as a family, when it asks for the kids' ages for their profile, because I know it's only me that's accessing it, or they don't do it without me, I have podged in like their date of birth is like whatever makes them 20, because otherwise you have to go sit there and sift through all the privacy settings, and it's just it's a nightmare. I get why it's there, but you need a degree in computer science to figure out which settings you're meant to choose.
And I find many of them, if you set them, you then break something that is essential to use. So you then have to turn it off anyway. So
exactly.
The only one which kind of works I found is Netflix, where you can say what age I'm not allowed to watch. But then I found like there are things with 12 ratings which a 10-year-old's fighting to watch. Star Trek: The Next Generation, my eldest has started watching. Oh. There is nothing in it, as far as I can work out, that makes it 12.
Whoa, Deanna Troi. Come on. It's quite a lot of 12 rated there. PG plus for sure. If I've remembered it rightly.
But then, I do that. But at the same time, the Netflix app, if you just go switch user, go into my login, I don't want to pause it. She can go and do that, and the first thing it comes up with some horrific movie that it wants me to watch, because for some reason it has not worked out. My taste is not horror movies yet. It keeps trying to make me watch something I don't want to watch.
John Pollard's calling me Dad of the Year. I'm assuming that's me for those things. To be clear, these are the things that I know we only do as a family. But like I say, on Netflix, there's nothing to stop them going over to the grown-ups profile. Are we going to set passwords for Netflix? Or are we going to trust them and set some rules? And then also, like, I don't want my Xbox Live thing. I've got to put a password in the one time I get to sit and play Xbox. Because there's already the dad curse on Xbox. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, where you get to play so little that every time you go, oh yes, I can finally play Gears of War online or something, and you put it on and it goes, welcome, you haven't been here for a while. There is a 42 terabyte update. It will be ready for you to play in 8 hours. You go, no. But as a dad, I just find that any time I try and do online Xbox, there's always that update. So no, I'm not going to stick a password in every time. Mark Greenhow defends me, even though I punted him in the last iRacing round that we had. All the various kids settings in the various consoles are so hard to navigate. And then especially the boy wanted a PlayStation 3. So I was like, woohoo, cheap. That's a cheap birthday present. So he got a second-hand PlayStation 3. It was a whole nother set of things to sit and go, oh. And so, yes, Dad of the Year, I just went, whatever. Yes, PlayStation, they're 20. They're 20. Just let them play the game. Let them play the game.
So the best thing I did on my PlayStation was I just, because my kids didn't really want to play online, so I just unplugged the network cable. And then when I need to install stuff, I plug it back in again. But there's no updates because it thinks the world hasn't moved on.
Nice.
It runs the games they want, and it's fine. And I basically stopped using the PlayStation because all my friends were on Xbox. So
brilliant. So basically, your PlayStation's Yorkshire. That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's a really good solution. Uh-oh. Now we'll see. Now we'll see if there's...
Here comes the chat room.
Here comes the chat.
I mean, so I'm now, I now work in York in some weird way.
Of course you do. Yeah, University of York.
But I'm not actually there at the moment because despite the fact I'm employed in York, my wife is employed in Yorkshire, my kids are still at school in Cambridgeshire because they're not allowed to move school in the crisis.
Ooh. Well, there you go. And by the way,
school.
before anyone gets too angry, my dad is a Yorkshireman as well. So there you go. So it's kind of like he's saying, I'm being called Northernist by Martin Dooley. I've never admitted this before, but I am hiding with shame some of my northern roots. But I am a recovered. What do you call like people who are in like cults and then they come out of them? What would you call that? Like a recovered
survivor.
Yeah, I'm a northern survivor.
Do you still drink tea in large quantities?
No, I don't touch tea at all. Black coffee, that's the only hot caffeinated drink that I have. So there you go. Right, this is just between you and me live stream and the Remain Indoors podcast audience. That's not for sharing with the general public, all right? I've shared that secret shame with you. Deprogramming. I'm a deprogrammed northerner. There we go. Right. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll join us again soon. We'll do some more science. As per usual, we didn't get to any of the stuff we wanted to get to, but do follow Dr. Andrew Holding on Twitter at Andrew Holding.
Yep.
And your Twitch channel is twitch.com/Andrew Holding, where on Thursday evening you will be playing Indiana Jones. So go and check that out and go and watch a grown man playing Indiana Jones. And how do they contribute that? How do they...
so there's a Twitch chat and I'll see that and then I'll... Like this. Like we have the YouTube chat, it will just be on Twitch, and I'll reply. I mean, this is the first time I've ever done.
No, but how do they donate to the cause?
Okay, so on the Twitch page, there's a Just Giving link. I've also put that on my Twitter feed.
There we go.
So it's just, to be honest, you don't have to go through the Just Giving page. If you tweet me and say you've given money to CRUK, I'll believe you.
Oh, okay, no, that's good. Yes.
I mean, this isn't about my ego having that little meter go up, but it is cool. If you tell me you've done it, I'll believe you.
Brilliant, and Tom Wheatley's calling me a traitor. Well, must be so many. There's so many Northerners here. Here we go. And each hammer says, "Oh, should the podcast name be?" Sorry, it's Ivind is EJ Hammer. That's how you say his name. Ivind. Should the podcast name be "We didn't get to any of the things we planned"? Podcast, quite possibly. But I was thinking like we might be due an early podcast name change just because of the changing situation. Obviously, the obvious one was change it to Stay Alert and keep doing that. But seeing as we don't get to any of the news items, Matt, I was genuinely thinking of changing this podcast to the Lifey Life podcast. Because that's all we talk about. So what are you talking about today? Well, sort of lifey stuff. Lifey life stuff.
That might work.
Lifey life. Well, let's give it a try. Hi, and welcome to the Lifey Life podcast, where we talk about life and stuff. It's like all lifey life. When you're just like alive, and then life is happening to you, and then you're like, oh, life, eh? It's so lifey life. Oh, that could work, Matt. That's a good intro.
I Hammer's Lifey McLife face.
Lifey McLifeface and Stuff and Nonsense podcast. Brilliant. So the important plug here is Dr. Andrew Holding, at Andrew Holding on Twitter. That's the place to find him. Go and see what he's doing. We are at Indoors Remain on Twitter. The theme music that you heard there is by Liam Taylor. Follow Matt at MattPT55. His lovely writer wife at A Weaver Writes on Twitter as well. That's a good person to follow, and you can get hold of some smutty books to enjoy as a family. Maybe just the adults in the family, though. Matt is at MattPT55. I'm at Spanners Ready. Until we see you next, which is tomorrow with Alice Ryan, work hard, be kind, and have fun. But for now, remain indoors.